everybody. Good evening. I'm Louise Burnham Packard. I chair the Union Chapel Church Council. And so on behalf of the chapel, welcome. We are so delighted to have you all here tonight, and we're delighted to be partnering with the library as part of their, hosting this event as part of their Library Talks series. And we'll hear from Bonnie Bankard at the end of the evening. She'll tell you what's up next. I'm also so glad to introduce our speakers, which most of you may know them well, but my sister-in-law, Rachel Balaban, married into the Burnham family 40 years ago. Thank you, John, for that. And some of you may remember her selling her Puchandosy children's clothing and women's clothing on the green for many, many years in the IPP Crafts Fair. But in the last 20 years, she has been involved in arts and health. First as the founder and director of DAPpers, Dance for All People, in Providence, and more recently as the inaugural artist in residence at the Warren Alpert Medical School at Brown University. I think the music is hard to talk over. We're good multitaskers.
Yeah.
And so in a sec, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Rachel, who will introduce the film, after which she'll be in conversation with Molly Frank. And so let me introduce Molly a little early in the program. You all know her. I know her from growing up on Fishers, and from her work as associate priest at St. John's. When she's not on Fishers, she is the staff palliative care chaplain at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, and she's an assisting priest at St. Bart's in New York City. So thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Molly. Rachel, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, sweetie. Oh, there's nothing level. I put this over here. Thank you all for coming. This is really so exciting to see so many of you. I think I know everybody here, which is awesome. I'm going to jump right into this because it would help to know why you're here. After I left the field of clothing design, I was searching for a cause, for a purpose. I knew it was out there, but it wasn't out there. I had to create it, evidently. I had always danced, and so after I left clothing, I thought, well, let me think about movement. And so I was trained at Kripalu in a certain movement discipline, very expressive, and I loved it, and I taught it for a while, but that wasn't enough. And so while I was still looking for that place for myself, I was introduced to dance for Parkinson's, and that changed my world. I almost get teary thinking about it. It's amazing. It's amazing what happens when you don't expect it to. I experienced this firsthand by taking part in classes and seeing people for whom movement was challenging. And many of them would shuffle in and stoop in, and you could hardly hear their voices. And by the end of the class, they were literally dancing out of the classroom, out of the studio. So I said, this is what I want. And so the really fun part about being trained was that one of the co-founders of the discipline of the program is David Leventhal, who is just an amazing human being. He is a Brown graduate like myself, 15 years my junior, but will always be my mentor. And he brought me into the fold, gave me a bit of a training, and then I did a formal training in Brooklyn, and I continue to do that to this day. 18 years later, 15 years later, whatever. So I was doing that, and I thought, okay, this is really fun and interesting, but I feel like this is more powerful than a studio dance class. I feel this needs to be amplified. So I went back to my dance teacher when I was at Brown, and we just talked to each other. We had been dancing in a company together, and we got 4 undergraduates at Brown and worked for 2 years to create what started as a first semester academic course and became a 2-semester academic course, and that lasted for 10 years. And in that first semester, we packed in way too much, and it was called Artists and Scientists as Partners, and I felt, okay, if we're going to do this, we have to have a laboratory, a dance, an experience for our students to understand what we're teaching them, academically. And so what started in 2013 as a 4-week pilot program continues today. It started as dance for the aging population, and immediately I said, okay, that is ageist and I don't like it. And so it became Dance for All People, or DAPpers. So that first semester course is way too jam-packed, and so it became a 2-semester course. Arts and Health Theory, first semester, Arts and Health Practice, second semester. First semester was all speakers and presenters and artists and scientists talking about this world of art and health. Second semester, we introduced DAPpers as a site placement for our students. So they had to participate for 8 weeks, write ethnographic journals, do design thinking, so very engaged with the people in the dance class. This was not about Brown University, mostly pre-med students observing. This is about them being in community. And so this is a long story to tell you how this came about. What happened was we would have these 8 weeks of dance classes. We would also have an annual symposium that introduced speakers from all over the country and the world. And within this symposium, we would have a lecture demonstration where we performed modern dance etudes. And these modern dance etudes, unlike ballet, where everybody can do Swan Lake, everybody can do Romeo and Juliet, modern dance isn't codified that way. So I happen to be in partnership with in this academic program with Julie Strandberg, who was my teacher when I was an undergrad. She and her sister, who was one of the founding dancers with Paul Taylor, created Dancing Legacy, and that took classic modern dances, and they commissioned the choreographers to create a 3 to 5 minute etude. So this comes down to each year in those lecture demonstrations, Brown University dancers, professional dancers, a very underserved high school in Rhode Island, Central Falls, and my DAPpers would perform this etude. But we would do them sequentially. After about 5 years, we started performing together. We started rehearsing together. And to see these Central Falls students come on Brown's campus and to feel a part of this community. And there's one photograph in this where our 80 to 95-year-old DAPpers were going on to Central Falls High School's campus. Anyway, so what you're going to see is the culmination, because this is recently filmed, the dance director for the high school is the filmmaker for this documentary. She approached me and said, I've always wanted to do a documentary on your dance program, and this is it. This is a 12-minute version. We're hoping to do a longer version because she has quite a bit of footage, but I'm going to end it here, and this is Dance for All People, a movement in medicine duet. Enjoy. I'm so excited to have Molly here. When we first talked about doing this, this is the 4th screening we've had, and I always have my team. I have a 96-year-old performer, an 84-year, 2 college undergrads, a medical student, Mariah Stump, a doctor. So I have my people, so they talk. So I'm going to channel them to the best of my ability. But I know that Molly is so integrated into this world as well, and so she was the first person to come to mind when I thought, okay, I don't have that team, but maybe I can create a new team. So thank you, Molly.
You're very welcome. I feel very, very humbled and very flattered to have been asked to embody all of those incredible people that you work with in this art form that I know so little about. It's been a joy to get to know Rachel and to get to know this program, which is, I work with medical students, I work with doctors and medical residents. I'm the palliative care, we call it at Sloan Kettering, the supportive care service. And there's the nomenclature is actually been well considered, but supportive care versus palliative care, there are pros and cons to both. And I am in the main hospital inpatient. We have integrative medicine, not really dance, mostly some movement, but music and all kinds of other therapeutics, but really for outpatient. Inpatient, not as much. And seeing this makes me so wanting to introduce you to the chief of our service, and because what we do within our supportive care service is very much aligned with you, except that it doesn't necessarily involve
bodies
movement as much, and it involves more teaching of our residents. So we have existential Fridays where we look at poetry with our residents and with our team. There are about 30 people on our service who are doctors and nurse practitioners and medical students, medical residents. And we have we have narrative medicine, which is an opportunity for writing with a professional who works with doctors on their experience through writing. We have visual, what do we call it? We call it aesthetic rounds, where we are invited to go to museums to sit with each other and with somebody who's actually going to help us gaze at art and come up. So this is a way that sort of medical residents, people who are in this particular service, are taught to use language I'll stop talking in a second. To use language to work with their patients, but frankly, I think so much of what is really helpful is not about language. There's only so much talking we can talk to really talk through what is essentially an existential experience when people are actually, in my world, have a real sense that the end of their lives is coming.
I think it's really hard to understand the power of movement unless you move. And so hopefully that gives you a little taste. I was so sorry to interrupt that.
So much
oh
better
my
than talking about end of life.
All right.
Yeah, exactly. So I say so much better than talking about sort of, sad existential problems.
Okay, where were we?
We were talking, I think, one of the things that struck me when you and I have been talking, a lot of things have struck me, but one of the things that strikes me is the journey that you've been on, a journey of integrating sort of your experience maybe as a designer with sort of a search, a sort of a decision, a time in your life that sort of called you into something a little bit different, that actually used a part of who you have always been. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that journey and how it doesn't sort of stop. It's like the Tennyson, the hells of hound that keep after you. Like, what is it that keeps pulling you forward to try, okay, this is good, but it's not quite, I'm not done. Maybe you can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I guess, so as a clothing designer, I was a clothing designer in New York City, and then my husband got a job where we were moved to Newport in January. And it was really awful because I loved my life. I loved being a clothing designer. I loved having a newborn and trying to figure out what was next. Anyway, we moved and I was like, okay, now what do I do? And so within, I guess, 8 months of moving, I started my own clothing business. 20 some odd years, whatever, and I mentioned as my kids entered school, it was like, okay, now what? I loved doing that. I do miss it at times. I love color and texture, but movement has always been interesting. And I actually looked at dance therapy right after college and decided, no, I don't want a clinical approach, and I've never done a clinical approach, as you can tell. And so I then, kind of dove into this movement thing, and it's always kind of like, this it isn't quite it, but what is? And so when the Dance for Parkinson thing came to me, I think, this is gonna sound really grandiose, but even when I was a clothing designer, I loved selling on the green. I loved seeing people choose the fabric and the style and the size and see how happy they were. I just loved that kind of joy, and I'm much happier when I'm wearing something that makes me feel good. So there was like this kind of healing sense of doing what I did. And when I decided to move into movement, I actually had done something at Kripalu to kind of help me find clarity around my next move. And we wrote our mission statement, and it was to help people find joy and vitality in their own bodies. That was my statement. So that was 2005, I think. Mm-hmm. And this is where I am. And I think it's having the dance training and that not being quite it, and then seeing this dance for Parkinson's. And then that wasn't quite enough, because I just think there's so much to what Dance for Parkinson's is, and to be able to bring that to more people. And then not only just that, but then teaching the academic course. It's like there are students who should know about this, because like Diana Wang, there are people in the medical field, particularly students entering it, who don't want to leave their art passion. And so that's what our program at Brown was all about. How can you keep your passion for your art form, become a doctor, and not let that go away, but really integrate it? And I've got stories I can tell you. I think we had 8 Fulbright scholars come out of our program at Brown using their art interest with medicine in Fulbright.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think, one of the things that has become pretty clear, I think, to all of us, everybody on the, who's involved in anything having to do with human touch, is that AI can't take the place of embodied relationships. And I think, the idea of how we embody, and how we engage, a spiritual practice that is essentially dance or art or narrative medicine, or is not, we can't do it through anything else but our own bodies.
Yeah.
It's a body presence. Yeah. And medicine it shouldn't be seen as an opposing discipline. The empirical knowledge and how doctors train and are using AI increasingly in their work. We all use it. And in fact, patients want to know that AI has been used often in their diagnoses and in their treatment plans. But, medical students are, it's an essential part of how they're going to be able to be good doctors, because there's a piece of it that cannot be outsourced, and that is how people are breathing, how they are, in fact, holding anxiety or peacefulness,
right?
And that is an embodied practice.
Yeah, and that's some of the work I'm doing at the medical school, is working with these med students to be able to understand these nonverbal signs, these interoceptive signs of how are people holding their body, how are they looking, how are they moving, and what are they not saying. And there's so much that it's body to body when you're a doctor and you're a patient, and if you can't have that sensitivity, then you're not the best doctor you could be.
Certainly not the best palliative care doctor that you could be.
Right. Exactly.
I'm not sure. I want my surgeon to be a communicator, but I'm not sure it's as. One of the things I've gotten to do recently is teach medical students at Cornell. I'm one of the ethics tutors for biomedical ethics, and what's so interesting, and I think, who teaches here? Raise hands. Anybody teach? Yeah. Okay. I will bet all of you have the same experience, which is that students now want to have the answer. Like, what's the answer to this? Like, we're talking about something having to do with choices that people might make at end of life, or a way that people might engage with the existential reality of their the end of their lives, or medical aid in dying, or any of these big issues that are coming up, and they just want to know the answer. Like, okay, here's the situation, but then what do you do? It's like, what'd you do? And it's like, well, no, it's not. What I did was ask more questions. Let's talk about the issue, and that's very uncomfortable.
Well, and that's a whole this discomfort and ambiguity. It is a huge part of medicine, as you know, and that again is why the arts, in my opinion, are so critical for medical students to engage in, because art is about no answer. There's never an answer, but it's about flexibility, creativity, improvisation. All of those things make us all better and smarter, but particularly doctors, because how many times do things go wrong in surgery, or not as planned? I don't want to say wrong, but I think the more exposure our medical students and medical residents get to these art forms where there is no control, there is no answer, there's only now and now and now.
That's right.
And pivoting.
That's right.
as a dancer, that's a big one.
Right. I mean, not having an answer, but being able to dance through something
and
or
dance
breathe.
with the circumstances.
That's right.
Yeah.
Or breathe through
Yeah.
something. It's so incredibly important. Let's see what I have some other thoughts.
You will get some time for Q&A too, so if you have any questions, please.
I mean, I think one of the things that I have been sort of struck by with the work that you're doing with DAPpers, the work you're doing with medical students, is how fortunate you are to have the opportunity to work with people who are actually up on their feet. We don't quite have that opportunity with some of our patients that are inpatient, but it doesn't preclude the reality of being able to work with breath and with movement and with meditation and with box breathing and all kinds of ways of visualizing to kind of calm anxiety.
Well, and some of my work is in nursing home or assisted living, and in Rhode Island I work at one where they have the highest number of centenarians. So I'll have 18 people in a circle, all in wheelchairs. So as much as this is the most advanced class you saw. This is my flagship class, but I have varying levels of mobility. And there was a woman who was 100 and something, amazing, Margaret. I have a video of her I can send to you if anybody's interested. She had been a cellist in her professional life. And I would put Stevie Wonder on and she would kind of do these pelvic thrusts. I'm not kidding. I mean, she would just, it was amazing how she came alive. Has anybody ever seen the film Alive Inside? So it's exactly like Henry when he puts the headphones on. It's like he's just been plugged into a light socket. Margaret would sit there and Stevie Wonder comes on and she's like, whoa, and she would just vocalize. So
just like Alzheimer's patients who, of course, the music and they remember all the hymns and they remember all the things. Exactly, it's so fun.
The perfect way to get to their selves.
I have to tell you a funny story. I worked for a long time ago in a nursing home. Was a memory unit, and I had to run the services. And I was told to. I was early days as a minister, and in this time of my life, and to do a sermon. And I was like, I wrote some stuff out. And the person who was the Lutheran minister who ran the nursing home said, "Listen, don't worry about it. Like no one's going to really." It's okay. You can, and I was like, okay. I was like, okay. And I got there, and there were some wheelchairs, and there were people sitting there. I got like 2 sentences in, and the entire room was asleep. I mean, they were all asleep. It didn't matter. It was actually
You did your job.
It was freeing. It was like, I can say whatever I want.
You did your job.
It was kind of fantastic.
That's what I figured. If people are sleeping, we're like, okay, they're relaxed.
No, but it says something about actually, the truth is that language is limited. And
absolutely, and the processing, there's so much that you can't verbalize, and there's so much that you can communicate through the nonverbal.
That's right.
Yeah. Thank you.